Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
I am sitting by with Thomas Peterffy of Interactive Brokers, and a lot of things dominating the conversation, but none more than the next presidential administration. When you think about what President-elect Trump, who you have given to for his prior campaign and the most recent one, what do you think the most impactful change will be to investors over the next 4 years?
Well, the most impactful aspect of the new administration will be less regulation and less interference with private enterprise. Having grown up in a socialist country, I come to a conviction early on in my life that a free market economy is the only way to efficiently run a society. And so I'm very happy that this is the outcome that we had this election time. I did not contribute as much to President Trump as I did to other candidates, other Republican candidates. I've always been a Republican all my life because, as I said, a good economy can only be based on private entrepreneurship.
Speaking of the Republican Party beyond Trump, I am very curious to hear what your thoughts are for Ron DeSantis' political future at the end of his term as Florida governor. Where do you think his career goes from here?
Well, unfortunately, I think Ron DeSantis shot himself in the foot with this 6-week abortion issue. And he could, I don't know if he will change his politics on that or not. That is going to be a very difficult situation. I was a great supporter of Ron for many years up until he came up with this 6-week abortion thing, because I don't believe in it. I don't think it's a good thing.
Beyond Ron DeSantis, who do you think he has put up for the Senate seat for Marco Rubio? Who do you think takes that spot in Florida? Who would you like to see take that spot? Who would you be backing?
Well, I think Ron DeSantis would probably be the best candidate for that Senate seat, and I hope that he will do that rather than being Secretary of Defense, because, from a point of view of his political future, I think a senatorial seat would be a better place to jump off of than Secretary of Defense.
What then do you make of the reports that Lara Trump is being put up for that Senate spot? Do you think that she has a significant place there?
Well, she certainly has done a good job this time around, but I think I don't really know how old she is. Is she old enough to become a senator? She must be if they are talking about her, right? But I think she's still a very young woman, no?
So, you of course are a very prominent Florida resident yourself. Activity in Florida has been very heated. A lot of people from Wall Street moving down there. And of course, with the president-elect at the Winter White House, what has it been like there? Have you seen much more increased activity, especially from the business community, in what is now known as Wall Street South?
Well, you see, it's especially from my point of view, because I live only 3 houses away from Mar-a-Lago. So many times I cannot get out of my house because there are so many cars waiting in line that it's very hard for me to go anywhere. So there is a hell of a lot of traffic there. The road is always closed up. And unfortunately, these assassination attempts are very difficult to cope with. So yes, it's not easy to live in Palm Beach nowadays.
You were talking earlier about the pro-growth agenda, but nothing to say yet of the tariff agenda. That is something that has spooked a significant portion of the business community. Do you think that if they are put on as aggressively as had been postured during the campaign, that there could be ramifications, inflation, that pervades the U.S. economy?
Yes, it's certainly possible, but I agree with Trump that is probably a best tool to get to the point where we want to get to, and I think the opposite side will see that and will agree with it, and they will give in.
What does this all mean at the end of the day for you at Interactive Brokers? If you are looking at a pro-growth agenda and stock markets now at record highs, another day of gains in the NASDAQ 100, just soaring equities, what does it mean for business for you, your clients, and your ability to grow?
Well, it's extremely good for our business, but I'm afraid that the markets are becoming overextended, and that sometime in the future we will have a downturn in the markets. But I don't think it's going to be a very violent and very far. It will not go very far. So I'm extremely optimistic about the next 4 years and maybe even thereafter.
What do you think this means for the potential to grow inorganically? Have you considered mergers and acquisitions for Interactive Brokers?
Yes, we have. It is difficult for us to engage in any of that because most firms we look at that we would buy are charging more for their services than what we do, and they would price themselves based on those revenues and incomes. And of course, if we were to take them over and we reduce the charges to our level, then those profits would go down. So we would buy a firm where I don't think that that their cost reductions would be equally, at least as high as what the revenue reductions would be. So it is difficult.
A lot of people...
It would be better off, I think, building our own, reinvesting in our own business rather than going out and buying others.
A lot of people believe that in the next administration you would have much looser antitrust regulations as well, much lighter antitrust enforcement. Does that mean, you said you would build yourself, but would you ever consider a transformative deal? Something that would be a merger of equals or even larger?
This is not a question I was prepared to deal with today, but well, of course, I mean, we will look at everything, but it doesn't mean that this is not something I ever thought about, to tell you frankly.
So the other thing where a lot of investors are expecting much lighter regulation is in the world of cryptocurrencies. How do you feel about cryptocurrencies from where you stand? And do you think that when your clients are going to Interactive Brokers, it's going to be something they're asking about more and more and more?
So cryptocurrencies are a very interesting area. We have been into cryptocurrencies for about 3 years. We charge less commission on a cryptocurrency trade than any other firm other than Robinhood. But Robinhood has a wider spread because they get their commissions paid by the market maker who they send their orders to. So I think on balance, our platform is probably the most efficient one for a crypto trader. Otherwise, to tell you frankly, I am sort of scared of cryptos because, they can go to any price because it's basically just a figment of imagination. So it doesn't have any underlying value. The only value it has is the same as the paper dollar, which is nothing.
But you've seen people pour in nonetheless through ETFs. You saw the price of Bitcoin get to $100,000. Will the investor of tomorrow be more likely to buy Bitcoin or a U.S. stock?
Well, it depends. Well, for a Bitcoin, you can buy U.S. stocks, right? For a U.S. stock, it's more difficult to buy Bitcoin, right? So I think that anybody who does not have Bitcoin should have some Bitcoin, but not too much. I would recommend that people put maybe their 2 to 3% of their net worth into Bitcoin. And we, for example, will not allow anyone to invest more than 10% of their assets into Bitcoin because I think that would be very dangerous.
And if you have one area that investors should look at for next year, the biggest risk on the horizon, everyone is talking about so much growth and soaring stock markets. You mentioned you're worried that you could actually see a downturn, which is contrary to what everybody else is out there saying, right? Many people are out there saying right now. What's the biggest risk on the horizon?
So a downturn is a very big risk because margin balances have been growing very, very quickly. And especially if you take a thing like Bitcoin, I mean, if margins on Bitcoin futures, for example, charged by the CME are extremely low. So I am very worried that people overextend themselves. A sudden hit comes into the market and Bitcoin falls, say, 30, 40, 50% from one day to the next. There'll be many bankruptcies. The clearinghouse will be unable to pick up the pieces, and it basically will, or the bad debt will be transferred to the clearing members. So this is a difficult situation if it happens. Now, the probability is not very high that it will happen, but it certainly could happen. So I wish that everybody please pay attention to these situations and try to take preventive measures. And do not extend margins so easily.
It's a good reminder to, in the middle of all the exuberance, keep an eye out for those risks. That is Thomas Peterffy, of course, chairman of Interactive Brokers.